All right, well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. It is a beautiful Tuesday morning, July 18th, 2023. We get together with our distribution partners most weekday mornings at this time, as well as our clients now, I must remember to say, to talk about strategies, tips, techniques, share success stories, and support each of you. So with that being said, today's topic is to review where you can succinctly find what we'll call the core training if you're one of our distribution partners. So this isn't hidden. If you go to guaranteedfunding.org, frankly, it's on your replicated websites as well. You can use your link, go to the careers page. Under the small business consultant heading, there's some important information that I wanted to bring your attention to. So there are some training modules that we would consider the core training. So certainly you can keep up with these daily trainings. You can go back to our YouTube channel. My concern, though, is that you may either get overwhelmed or miss the core training, the most important topics to be successful. So I want to show you those here. So you'll see a bullet. If you're interested in selling the primary trade lines, there's one specific training that gets you up to speed on it. And of course, it's linked here on that bullet. If you're interested in learning about the free funding proposal, then there's a 3-part training, part 1, part 2, part 3 here. So you always want to remember there's different campaigns. And I think if there's ever confusion, it's usually based around this. The analogy that I give is if you and I went to Denny's this morning for breakfast, you could order the pancakes, you could order the French toast, kind of similar but different. My favorite is the moon over my hammy. It's the egg and cheese and ham on sourdough. So there's different items on the menu. Our programming is broad, right? We have the credit and funding program. We have the startup business funding package, the free credit repair, the business accelerator, the free funding proposal, the $100,000 trade line. Not to be confusing, right? You don't get confused when you go into Denny's and realize there's multiple options. Well, each of these are separate. And so our primary 3 that I would think that you would want to focus on would be number 1, again, the trade lines. And so there's a specific training for it. And there's also a page for it that talks about the $100,000 trade line that also has 2 videos on it. Secondly, we learn about the free funding proposal, as I was just mentioning. And from there are 3 parts to that training. And there's a different page on your replicated website that talks about it. And then thirdly, the credit and funding program. Most of you are leading now with the credit and funding program. Why? Because we can make it available with no upfront cost. There is, of course, a refundable setup fee, but that can be financed. And we're delivering 4 points of value. If you're not crystal clear on those 4 points of value, I would recommend that you take notes right now, because if you can't state these 4 parts of the value proposition, you probably won't be very successful in describing it to others. And by the way, this is described in part 5, the success story training. But let's review that since we're on this topic. So with no upfront cost, the credit and funding program does what? What does it do for the participant, for the client, for the customer? Number 1, at no cost, in other words, for free, we help remove applicable derogatory items. What does that mean? Taking negative items off the credit report. Secondly, we help them add new positive trade lines. Well, why would you want to do that? Well, if the goal is to use better credit to get funding, what you and I know, and we want to help improve through financial literacy, help others know, is that it's the combination of removing negative when applicable and adding positive trade lines when needed to get an optimal score, to be fundable. And so Of the 4 elements of the value proposition of the credit and funding program, 2 of those are based around credit. And again, this is outlined specifically in the training called Success Stories. So number 1, we help them remove applicable derogatory items. Number 2, we help them add new trade lines. The third is we transfer over $10,000 of assets within 24 hours. Well, why would we want to do that? Well, because those assets goes on the client's financials. So now they have collateral for a loan. I'll come back to that. And we help them liquidate those receivables to turn into cash so they have more cash flow. Because what you and I know, not everyone knows, but you and I need to help educate, is if your goal is to get funding, it typically comes down to what? The 3 C's: credit, collateral, and capacity, otherwise known as cash flow. So the credit and funding addresses those 3. And you might say, well, how do I remember that? Well, you can go over to the credit and funding page on your website, and guess what? It talks about the 3 C's on your website. About credit, how we help them with credit. About capacity, how we help them improve their capacity, their cash flow, and collateral. So going back to the training. So the credit and funding program, the 4th element is it guarantees a minimum of $100,000 within 30 days. So those are the 4 value elements. Improve credit by removing negative, improve credit by adding positive, the transferring of assets, the receivables that we help them liquidate to increase cash flow, and 4th, a guaranteed $100,000 in 30 days. So there are 5 training videos on this campaign. So obviously part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and part 5. So my advice to you, especially, well, if you're one of these 2, if you're either a new consultant or a struggling consultant, I think the first thing that you should do is identify the campaign, the program that you want to go to the market with. What I wouldn't be doing is sending out a link where people see all these pages and they get confused. Because as clear as it is, there's different pages for different programs. I was talking to a client this morning. Client enrolled in the credit and funding program last night. So what did we do? We onboarded it, right? So we sent over, hey, thanks, Joe. His name's not Joe. Hey, Joe, thanks for enrolling in the credit and funding program. Here's what we're going to do for you. Here's our promises. Let's get started. And so then he responded, oh no, I didn't enroll in the credit and funding program. And so then we sent him his enrollment information and said, well, no, Joe, you did. Oh, no. I want the free credit repair. So it's important, to me, it seems obvious, but just for sake of transparency, there are different tabs on your replicated site, and each one's a different page. It's a different program, a different campaign. So from your perspective, if you're a small business consultant, I would recommend identifying one campaign to take out to the market initially. I would strongly encourage it to be the credit and funding, but it doesn't have to be. Some of you are really fond of the $100,000 trade line. But I would argue that you could start with the credit and funding, take it to the marketplace, and a good number of them would benefit from the $100,000 primary trade line. So it's not keeping you from helping them with that and monetizing it. But not everybody is as sharp as you, is as financially literate as you. So some people don't really understand, what is a trade line? Why is it important? People that know about them get it, but there's a lot of people that don't really understand how it fits into the big picture. But when you go out to the market with credit and funding, people can get that pretty easy, right? We get you qualified for funding, guaranteed. What are you getting? Help with the 3 C's, right? And while there is a refundable setup fee, we can finance that, so there's no upfront cost. I would strongly recommend taking the credit and funding program out to the marketplace. And in fact, if you go back and view the trainings, you will find that we've provided you specific scripting in terms of what we'd recommend that you say, or if you're wanting to put ads out, specific scripting to put ads out. the process, which includes don't blast out your link, create awareness, have them contact you, then text them your link while you're on the phone with them. And we've role played that a couple times. And then you just simply help them put their information in. So with that being said, what's the goal today? The goal today is to reiterate, even if you're already with us, that this isn't just a page for prospective new small business consultants. It's also a great reference site for core training. Now, is there more training available? Of course, but core training here. So, and then if you want to be a state director, there's information below, and there's just one training for it. So who has questions, comments, concerns on our goal today? And our goal today is to reiterate that the careers page is a centralized location for key reference material, but we do ask that you look at it in terms of different campaigns. So there's one training on the trade lines, there's 3 trainings on the free funding proposal campaign, and there's 5 trainings on the credit and funding. You're welcome to look at all of them. But again, when you're going out to the marketplace, I'd identify a target market, I'd identify a campaign, and I'd keep it narrow to keep from confusing yourself and others. Who has questions or comments on that? You can type those into the Q&A. It's like a chat box. Now, there's something else I need to go over because I was speaking to Eric. Eric is one of our top referral partners, and he had a client that enrolled. Client enrolled, I believe, I'm going to say what I think is correct. I think the client enrolled in the free, the client enrolled in Access to Capital, which is off the home page. So he helped the client enroll in Access to Capital, which is a different campaign. Great. Client enrolled, and we got the client funding. Now, not the full 100,000 for the first tranche, but client got first round of funding. Awesome. Awesome. So we invoice the client for the performance fee because that's the deal, right? Paid afterwards, and that's how we pay the referral partner. So all's good there. Let me get back to the careers page. But what happened is then the client had, well, to simply put, without divulging personal information, the client stopped participating. And so we asked and begged and pleaded, hey, client, we're not done. We got your first tranche. You're happy with it. But we're supposed to get at least 100,000. That's the promise we made to them and they made to us. Well, client went radio silent. So the client went into default. So their agreement went to collections. And so now it's going to be reporting on the client's credit bureaus for default. And then it'll be sold to one of our debt buyers who will probably litigate it. And that's not the design, right? But the client quit. Not because of our lack of failure or performance. Again, the client already has had first tranche of funding, of cash funding. So anyway, what Eric asked me to share with you all today as we were going through this is just to reiterate, there are agreements, right? And so when a client signs the agreement, it explains what we promise to do for them, but conversely, it also states what they promise to do. Eric felt that I should communicate with each of you that agreements exist and they define the responsibilities and obligations of each party. Now, to me, seems kind of common sense, right? That's what contracts are about, to prevent disputes. Everybody's on the same page. But out of respect to Eric, he wanted me to reiterate that, because he said to me, if I would have told him that, then he would have told his client that, and his client wouldn't have stopped participating. I don't know about that, but nonetheless. So we have core training here, but the bonus quote unquote Eric training is, remember, when someone signs an agreement, whether it be a written contract on paper or Adobe, DocuSign, or even online terms and conditions, regardless of the format, if it's a legally enforceable agreement, it states what the two parties promised to do. And now those two parties are expected to do so. I think that seems obvious probably to you, seems obvious to us, but Eric wanted me to include that in today's training. So there we go, Eric. All right, so who else has questions regarding being a small business consultant? Now, if you're not one, of course, this is where you'd come to the career page. And obviously, we're very transparent. You can watch all the training even before you sign up if you wanted. That's fine. But if you wanted to become a small business consultant, you fill out the information, you check the box, hit the submit, and then we'll get you set up, get your free website, you're off and rolling. If you have signed up and you don't have your free website, it's crucial you get a hold of us because it means the model's broken. Most likely we sent you the onboarding email. It went into spam or got caught in a filter and you didn't see it, but we wouldn't know that necessarily. So our contact information's on the bottom here. So if you are a current consultant and you don't have your onboarding, you don't have your free landing page, then definitely reach out to us. But if you are a small business consultant, again, the goal of today's training is just to bring your attention that 3 of the campaigns have detailed training right here, one of which for the trade lines, one of which for the free funding proposal, and another of which for the credit and funding. So who has questions on this? Because it's important to understand where to find the training and that each program, each campaign, each offering, which are separated by different pages on the website to avoid confusion, they operate differently. How you're paid is different on each one. For example, if you wanted to go out and help someone with a $100,000 trade line, the amount of money you receive and the timing of which when you receive it is different than other programs. On the $100,000 primary trade line, you're paid the same day. Not tomorrow, not in a week, not the end of the month. If you sell a $100,000 primary trade line, you're literally paid today. Paid today. Can't beat that. But that's not necessarily the same for some of the other programs. And so if you don't understand how any of the programs work, first go back and visit your website, your replicated site. Definitely review the trainings of the key 3 programs. And then if at that point you still have questions, let us know. Our goal is to get together with you most weekdays, 8 o'clock Central, like we're doing live now. And then also our service model is to schedule one-on-one visits with you each month. I'm sorry, each week, which is your responsibility to do so. So who else has questions, comments, concerns on what we've covered? How to become a small business consultant, which really isn't the purpose, how to access these core trainings, clarification that there are different pages on your replicated site. Each represents a different message, if you will, and that it would be wrong for you or for a client to start crossing the line over. So, you know, if someone's wanting the free credit repair, then it states specifically what to do. The client that I was speaking of this morning said he was wanting to do this, but he literally went to the credit and funding page, not only filled this out, but went on in the process to fill out terms and conditions. He signed it with his signature. He provided all of his information. And then he's like, oh, no, I didn't mean to do that. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? So we need to make sure. I would not be just sending out your link. I would have them on the phone. I'd send them the link, and then I would guide them through the next steps based upon the campaign that you're focusing on, which in general, I'd strongly recommend it to be the credit and funding program. So if you're walking them through the steps, it eliminates the risk of misunderstanding. All right, so Sharita noticed, she's astute. She noticed that the quick cash is no longer listed up here. So she's asking a multi-part question. Is the quick cash program still available? It is on a limited basis. We want to make sure that whomever enrolls into quick cash is a good fit. So we did take it off of the website. It is available, but we want to make sure that before someone enrolls in quick cash that they're well suited, because quick cash, if you remember from the prior trainings, it's essentially they sign up and we're transferring to them tomorrow, the next day, within 24 hours, $10,000 of receivables, which is quite frankly the same as this leg of credit and funding. So credit and funding, you could argue, includes quick cash. It's not labeled as such because it's this column. And then by transferring receivables to them, what do? We help them liquidate those receivables and turn that into cash flow. So in short, these two compose quick cash. We would rather clients come into the credit and funding program and get quick cash elements, these two C's, but we'd like to also provide them the free credit improvement because that's going to probably benefit them the most. So that's part one of Shrita's question. Why isn't quick cash up here anymore? It is indirectly because, again, this and this equals quick cash. Okay, the second, she says, when filling out the PDF form, it does not allow you to autofill the form. That we probably should visit about separately, Shrita, to figure out what's going on with that, to identify the specific form and a workaround. So if I were you, I would email us support@guaranteedfunding.org. You can call or you can text. We'll figure that out, but that might be better individually. And that's what's going to happen sometimes is we'll bring up topics. Some of you might have a very specific issue that we need to resolve that's just better suited one-on-one, which is fine. Not because there's anything private about it. We just need to have dialogue with her to figure that out. All right. So in summary, all of you, well, thank you for, if you are a small business consultant. If you're not, you know how to become one if you want to. And then if you are one, we've covered. Here is a repository, a place to go for the core training for the 3 different campaigns. We recommend starting with one campaign, go to the marketplace. I would encourage you to start with a credit and funding program, spend, I don't know, about 2 hours, and you'll be up to speed on everything about the credit and funding program, scripting process, benefits, comp, success stories, and you'll be ready to go. With the credit and funding, you're making right at $3,000 per client. So it's not get rich quick. I know a lot of you, there's a lot of other things you could go do to make $3,000 a day, but that's how this is positioned. We want you to be able to make $3,000 a day as a consultant, referring one client in per day into the credit and funding. Now, that's not a performance requirement. You don't have to refer one person per day, but we believe that setting a goal, a personal goal, so it's not a contractual goal, but a personal goal of 1 a day is ideal. Because you get up in the morning, you know, well, I haven't enrolled anyone, so I want to be thinking about that throughout the day. And then when you wrap your day up, you can easily reflect, hey, did I enroll someone or not? The contract to be a small business consultant does not require you to enroll one person a day. So I'm not saying it's mandatory, but if you were to ask me about a best practice, that's what I would have as a personal goal. And I would focus on the credit and funding program, which can often open up an opportunity for the trade line as well. And we talked about the benefit of the trade line is that that's putting money in your pocket right now, today. All right, any other questions that anyone has? I appreciate everyone's participation. Any other questions you have? So you can go to the careers page on our website or on your replicated website, and that's where these core trainings are. Please don't get lost in the shuffle. We've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different trainings. So I'm not here to say that they're not valuable, some of which may not be timely anymore. Maybe they're dated, maybe they are irrelevant. But the most important thing is that you're able to go execute, go help people, and you make money. And this is the core training to accomplish that. If you want to watch, so what do we have? 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 trainings total, ignoring what may be parked on some of these pages. But if you don't have time for 9 trainings, so let's say that's about 5 hours worth. So you don't have that much time. That the promise, the opportunity to earn $3,000 a day is not worth 5 hours of prep time. I respect that. Then I would just narrow in on these trainings here, but I would certainly watch all 5 of them, then develop a campaign which we can help you with, and then we should execute. All right. Well, thanks everyone. If there's no other questions, we'll let you go. We'll see you back tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock Central. Thanks. Bye.